At more than 3.6 million square miles, the Sahara in northern Africa is the world's largest hot desert. Imagine riding a camel across this vast desert with golden sand dunes stretching out as far as the eye can see. The distance to cross the Sahara would be like traveling across the U.S. from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific coast. For centuries, many traders and travelers did exactly that. What do you think it would have been like to be a merchant traveling across the Sahara? It would have been difficult, but it was an important job. Trade routes crisscrossing the Sahara once connected African kingdoms and cities, such as Timbuktu, to the rest of the world, playing a crucial role in their prosperity. Can you recall any trade routes across the desert? The Trans-Saharan was an important network of roads that linked the continent to the Mediterranean Sea and beyond. These routes seem like a vital clue to today's world history mystery. How did trade and education create a rich and vibrant culture in African kingdoms? As we find answers, we will also look at the importance of trade and education in Africa during the Middle Ages, the significance of major African kingdoms, and the impact of trade routes and cultural exchange on the continent. Are you ready, historians? Trade and education were vital during the rise of African kingdoms. Routes such as the Trans-Saharan connected the African world with Europe, Asia, and other parts of Africa, allowing goods to flow freely. Gold, mined from the rich regions of West Africa, and salt, essential for preserving food, were the main goods traded. These goods were transported across the desert by camel caravans, often organized by local traders. But how do you think trade routes helped spread knowledge during the rise of African kingdoms? These routes led not only to the exchange of goods, but also helped spread ideas like Islam throughout the region. As the Islamic faith spread, Western Africa changed quickly. Islamic scholars and architects traveled to the region, bringing new knowledge, technologies, and cultures with them. Their presence enriched Western African culture and education for decades. No city represented this emphasis on trade and education more than Timbuktu. One of several cities that became important trade hubs where merchants from different places gathered to exchange goods, Timbuktu and cities like it became centers of learning and knowledge too. The exchange of knowledge and culture led to the construction of impressive buildings and the establishment of educational institutions. New mosques and schools were built across the region. The University of Sankore in Timbuktu attracted scholars from all over the Islamic world who came to study. These scholars contributed to a rich intellectual environment, producing works on various subjects including astronomy, law, and religion. More African communities established libraries and universities. How do you think these centers of learning helped improve societies during the Islamic Golden Age? These places became focal points of the region, encouraging people to study subjects like math, science, and literature. Education was made accessible to many, not just the wealthy. Schools taught children to read and write, and universities provided advanced learning for scholars. Why do you think education was so important in these African societies? This emphasis on education helped spread knowledge and innovation throughout the Islamic world. The literacy rate in these regions increased, and there was a high value placed on learning. The teachings of Islam encouraged the pursuit of education, and many rulers supported schools and other centers of knowledge. Learning and the Islamic faith became intertwined. The combination of trade and education created a rich and vibrant culture in cities such as Timbuktu. Three major African kingdoms, Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, rose to prominence between the 9th and 16th centuries. The three were located in the same general part of Africa, in the southwest portion of the Sahara Desert. In fact, Timbuktu was at one time part of all three empires. Why do you think all three kingdoms were located in the same area? Pause here to respond. You may have mentioned the trans-Saharan trade routes, but that's only part of the reason. Let's keep digging for more clues. The Kingdom of Ghana, located in West Africa, was one of the earliest powerful kingdoms in Africa. Any ideas on how the Kingdom of Ghana achieved its power and wealth? It became wealthy by managing trade routes across the Sahara Desert. Ghana's rulers taxed traders passing through their land, making the kingdom rich and influential. They controlled trade and maintained peace in the region. Wait a second. I think that's another clue as to why these empires were all located in this area. The location of these empires didn't just give them access to the trade routes, it allowed them to control trade. Ghana's power reached its height between the 9th and 11th centuries, with the capital city of Kumbai-Sala becoming a vibrant trade hub. The Mali Empire followed and became famous under the rule of Mansa Musa during the 14th century. Do you remember what Mansa Musa did to bring attention to his empire? His pilgrimage to the Muslim holy city of Mecca is legendary. Traveling with a caravan of thousands of people and camels packed with riches, Mansa Musa gave away tons of gold during his journey and told stories of Mali. Musa's journey showcased Mali's wealth, but more importantly, it established diplomatic and economic ties with other Islamic states. Islamic scholars and architects came to West Africa, enriching its culture and education for decades. Under Musa's rule, Mali became a center of learning and culture. Why do you think Mansa Musa emphasized education in his kingdom? Pause here to respond. In addition to using schools to teach a common language, Musa encouraged the study of Islam. He used schools as a way to promote the religion, spread Muhammad's teachings, and embed Islam in Mali's culture. The Songhai Empire rose after Mali and during the 15th century became one of the largest empires in Africa. Songhai expanded its territory through military conquest and used the army to control important trade routes. Hold on! Military power! That's it! These African empires were in the same area at different times because they had a strong army to take over lands and trade routes that had been controlled by their predecessor. In Songhai, leaders like Askia the Great helped strengthen the empire, promoting trade, learning, and an effective government, while taking over territory that once belonged to Ghana, then Mali. Askia also promoted Islam and encouraged education to help spread the religious teachings. These kingdoms were significant for their economic power, cultural achievements, and contributions to world history. It's no wonder they were found in the same region. They all showed the importance of trade and education, and used strong leadership and military strength to build influential societies. That explains why Timbuktu was at one time part of each of these empires. It served as an important hub of trade and education, and was used to spread each empire's culture to other places. In African kingdoms like Mali, Ghana, and Songhai, trade routes were crucial for many reasons. In addition to bringing goods to the region, they also brought an infusion of new ideas and technologies. In those kingdoms, Timbuktu and cities like it served as centers of trade and learning that spread innovations and new ways of thinking across the rest of the African continent. Controlling Timbuktu and other cities provided a means to control trade and knowledge throughout the region. Hold on, let's take a step back for a second. If Islam originated in Western Asia, how do you think it became such an important factor for West African kingdoms? Muslim merchants and scholars traveled along these routes, bringing their religion with them. As they traded, they also shared their beliefs. Many African rulers and nobles adopted Islam, which brought big changes. What changes do you think occurred when Islam was first introduced to West Africa? Pause here to respond. Before the introduction of Islam, many African societies practiced their own traditional religions. These beliefs often included worshiping ancestors, spirits, and nature gods. While some of these societies maintained their traditional beliefs and others moved to Islam, many blended their native religions with Islamic teachings. This mix of beliefs created unique cultural traditions. As Islam spread across Africa and education became more important to society, schools and universities focused on studying the Quran and other important texts. In those centers of learning, new ideas and technologies were introduced that proved to be important to Ghana, Mali, Songhai, and others. Scholars in Timbuktu studied the stars and developed advanced knowledge of astronomy, which helped in navigation and calendar making. The introduction of Arabic numerals and advanced mathematical concepts improved trade and record keeping. Medical texts and practices from the Islamic world were introduced, leading to better health care and treatments. Improved architectural techniques, such as the use of mud bricks and intricate carvings, led to the construction of impressive buildings and mosques. The development of improved irrigation methods provided more food, helping these societies thrive. This knowledge helped link African empires to the rest of the world, making these societies more interconnected and creating an exchange of thought and innovations. The impact of these trade routes and cultural exchanges can still be seen today in the traditions and educational institutions that were established in Africa. And what city stood as a symbol for that blend of trade and education for all three empires? Timbuktu. African kingdoms like Ghana, Mali, and Songhai were shaped by the exciting blend of trade and education. It's much easier now to imagine bustling trade routes filled with camel caravans carrying gold and salt across the vast Sahara. That's how leaders, such as Mansa Musa, turned these kingdoms into hubs of knowledge and culture, attracting scholars from around the world. These vibrant African societies show us how the exchange of ideas and goods can build powerful and prosperous communities, even in the world's largest desert. These incredible stories from the past can inspire us to value learning and connection to others in our world today. We asked, how did trade and education intertwine to create a rich and vibrant culture in African kingdoms? Timbuktu provides clear evidence that we now have the answers. Next time we check out one of the most influential empires of the late Middle Ages as we do a deep dive on a familiar empire. Until then, keep exploring the past and shaping the future, and remember to always be clever. Hey, hey.